discuss a curfew ordinance.
Mayor and Council, this is actually a very timely thing. The chief came to me, I don't know, about 60 days ago and said, we need to have a curfew ordinance. And so we took the opportunity to actually prepare a draft during that period. And Chief, if you would like to go over what you think your needs are associated with that, and if you can tell us a little bit about what the ordinance might entail.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, City Manager. I believe everybody received a copy of this, but I want to highlight some of the areas that I think are very important. The curfew hours, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. On Friday and Saturday, it'll be midnight to 6 a.m., and when school is in session, it'll be 9 a.m. to 2:30 in the afternoon. Now, we are the only city in this area that does not have a curfew for minors. And a minor is any person under the age of 17. There's on page 3, there's defenses to this. And an officer has to do their due diligence. They have to ask the minor their name, their age, and what their business is at this public place before they even begin to think about, do I cite, what do I have? So the officers have to do their due diligence. What it is, it's a fine, and it cannot exceed $500. If you will look on page 3 at the top, the offenses, a minor commits an offense if he or she remains, walks, stands, drives, or rides about in or upon a public place or on the premises of any establishment within the city during these curfew hours. The owner, operator, or employee of any establishment commits an offense if they knowingly allow a minor to stay on their premises, knowing that they're a minor. So this allows business owners to help the police. A parent having custody of a minor commits an offense if they knowingly allow a minor to be out during these hours. Now, I've got some data that I want to share. Over the last 3 years, 481 juvenile arrests were made by the Pflugerville Police Department and the Pflugerville Independent School District. 481. Of the 481 juvenile arrests made by the police department, 23% were during the time of this proposed curfew. I am bringing this to the attention of the council because this is a tool for law enforcement to be able to help us curb property crime. Nothing good happens after midnight, according to my grandfather, who lived to be 100. And a lot of the data that I will be able to produce after we go into our proper technology, I think you will see. You're going to see a great result. Because what this does is it creates a safe environment. I want our community to feel safe. And it also alerts these minors that if you're coming into our jurisdiction from the surrounding areas, this isn't the place to come to. Any questions?
Chief, from the timing perspective, does that mirror the other cities as well? I mean, I'm going back to the example of my youth where, bars closed in one town at 1, but in another at 2.
Yes, sir. We collected city ordinances from around the surrounding agencies to get an idea, and then we vetted it through legal.
One thing I noticed on here, you didn't have a consideration for open campuses. So, say a 16-year-old, 17-year-old decides to go to lunch off campus from 9 to 2:30, they would not be allowed off campus.
That's something that we can consider.
Right, and so 36 minors a year are arrested, per the numbers you just gave. What kind of crimes were they committing?
I don't have that data, but I can get it.
Okay.
I don't have all the title codes. Basically, with the technology we have right now, it'll be a hand search for by each report.
Do we have vandalism rates as it happens by time of day?
Yes, sir.
And what's the statistics telling us? Do we have an uptick? Is this a new problem that we're having? Is it on the rise? What's the
No, I think
impetus for the
I think this was brought up before. From the information that I'm gathering, I don't have that historical information, but I have been told that this was brought up before to a different council, and it wasn't approved.
Yeah, and a sergeant who's no longer with us brought it up when I was on a ride out with him 4 years ago. And I brought it up to Brandon's attention because I was listening to the news, and Austin was going through their approval process because I think every 3 years they have to revisit the curfew there.
That is correct, and this one would be reviewed every 3 years.
So is there a, Chief, I know it's the responsibility of the parent as well to keep up with where their minors are, their children are. So if they knowingly know they're out, they're liable for a citation as well?
Yes, sir. And what I would like to do, if we roll out and approve this curfew, is I want to educate our community first. And meet with different community groups and put things out in social media and send something out through the schools and educate them and then move forward.
Right. And one other thing, and it may be in your report or summary, is that in reference to the question regarding open campuses, I'm not sure how we would deal with the kids that are homeschooled, and in a situation where they may be out in the public because their schedules are a little different.
And that's part of one of the defenses on there,
Okay.
being homeschooled.
And council, we also circulated some additional language we were going to suggest after getting some internal feedback on the curfew hours itself, where we were going to specify why Friday is not listed on subsection A1. It says the curfew for Friday and Saturdays doesn't start until midnight, so those evenings. So that's why Saturday and Sunday it shows it to start as midnight, but Friday actually isn't listed. So we were going to make that a little bit more clear by recognizing that there is no curfew hours under that subsection for Friday evenings because you can stay out till midnight on Friday. We would also be able to, based on the feedback, make another exception for purposes of a permitted absence from school during normal business hours due to open campuses, because that would be a time period permitted by the school district for individuals to leave campus. And so and these are defenses, and defense to prosecution are ones which we have to prove as the state that they do not apply, rather than an affirmative defense that the student or parent would have to prove they do apply. So these would be kind of a checklist of discussions that the officers would need to have with the students during that, or the children during that time period, to determine whether they're in fact in violation.
The other concern I had was you said under the defense section. Sorry, I have to find it again.
Page 3.
Page 3.
A6, section 4, subsection A6. Growing up, we had a whole neighborhood of kids we'd run around with at night in the summertime, and that wasn't necessarily next door. We didn't cause any trouble. We didn't cause any mayhem. I don't understand why that would be a concern.
And I think that goes with officer discretion.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to know their neighborhood, and driving around, they're going to know whose child lives where. This is a small community still. And I think having that discussion and say, hey, guys, gals, it's getting late. What are you guys doing? Have a conversation, not just go out and throw tickets.
Well, and that's kind of my concern with this whole ordinance. If we have the ability for the officers to get to know the minors in their area, we will know kind of who's kind of doing the wrong stuff at the wrong times. I feel like this may be a little heavy-handed for Pflugerville at this point. That's just a council thing I want to throw out there. We actually, the BB gun ordinance way back when?
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, airsoft ordinance. We're still having BBs shoot out car windows. It's just kind of hard to police something like this. And that's just a concern of mine with the curfew. I just wanted to let everybody think about that a little bit. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I just don't know if Pflugerville's quite ready for this yet.
So my main concern on this is that one of the findings that we make at the very beginning of this ordinance is that that there has been an increase in juvenile violence, gang activity, and crime by persons under the age of 17. I don't know that we have empirical data to actually make that statement at this point in time.
Or do we?
I can get you better data once we get Spillman on board.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what the chief brought up on Thursday night. We're not quite ready for the full data rundown yet.
Yeah, it sounds like we need the CAD RMS system in place before we can really justify this.
We have a recent incident that was gang-related that
Yes, sir, we
brings us
did.
to concern.
Yes, sir, we did.
The ages of those, 18 to 21, I believe.
They were considered adults, and they were running around with other folks who were juveniles as well. I didn't highlight it in the media because I won't publicize gangs. I won't give them their 2 seconds on the television.
And the only other thing I want to look at with this, council, is the fine to the businesses. I think we should review that a little bit more as well. And I understand where we're going with it on it is we need a way to enforce the ordinance. But I don't know if finding a business owner for being in business and having a minor in there.
Well, I want to ask another question to the chief. Do we need this right now?
I believe we do.
And I bet there's reasons for that.
That's fair.
And if it's not if it doesn't, if the statistics don't prove out, we can always set it aside at a later date and make sure that we put a date certain on a 1-year time frame where it dies and has to come back to council.
Do it in 3 months. She'll have
No,
nice days.
3 months. It has to have enough time to have a cycle through the year, if you will, to see if it's effective or not. 3 months is the summer, and people's
People are going to be running
living
around very
patterns
soon.
are change over that time.
Well, I think that in the spirit of public safety and I think with Chief Robledo's coming on to the PD and making a lot of internal changes and external changes as well, I think there's an opportunity for us to look at this ordinance, curfew ordinance. I agree with you, Chief. If we have the right education to our community, to our citizens, to our businesses, I'm sure there are probably some businesses who would rather not have 10 teenagers hanging out, or in their parking lot or whatever. And then same goes for the customers that might be frequenting that business, is they may feel a little uncomfortable with, the minors out in the parking lot. And again, I'm not saying one way or the other. We all had our heyday as teenagers, I'm sure, but I think it would be worthwhile looking at.
Thank you.
And similar to the discussion we had around the animal shelter where we were on the left side of the spectrum there, so to speak, hearing that we're the only city in the area that doesn't have one puts us in the other spotlight that's not so favorable in my opinion.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
I'm finished. We can go to the next item if y'all are
Yeah,
ready.
let's go ahead and go to the next one.
Mayor and council, when we, with regard to this next item, the distracted driving ordinance, the very first thing that I would suggest is we give George just a moment to brief us a little bit about what the legislature has done and what they might do, because it affects anything that you may wish to consider.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, with regards to a consideration of a distracted driving ordinance, House Bill number 62, which was passed and signed into law by the governor, goes into effect September 1st in the state of Texas. House Bill 62 does prohibit the use of a cell phone or other electronic device for sending, reading, or writing a text message while operating a motor vehicle. Those are the specific limitations to the statute. It only applies to the sending, reading, or receiving text messages. This legislation has been slated for the special session with the specific instructions from the governor to broaden its preemption provisions in the state law. The current preemption provisions of the state law indicate that any local ordinance that prohibits the reading, writing, or sending of text messages while operating a motor vehicle are hereby preempted by state law and are no longer able to be enforced by local law. While that is a portion of the draft ordinance that we have provided, the ordinance for the city of Pflugerville that is currently provided for discussion today, under the third whereas, it identifies that it would apply to the engaging in a call, sending, reading, or writing a text message, viewing pictures of written texts, whether transmitted by internet or other electronic means, engaging in gaming, or engaging in any other use of the device while operating a motor vehicle is considered a traffic hazard and a danger to the public. And so all of those other elements currently would be included in your ordinance if this was up to be passed today. Those are the things that the governor is suggesting to the state to preempt, so that there are uniform no texting laws throughout the state of Texas. And so that being in flux, we wanted to make sure you knew that was aware first as to whether or not you want to consider this now, or perhaps after the legislative session is completely over to discuss the adoption.
Yeah, since I asked for this on the agenda as well, given the state of flux, then especially downtown, we should probably punt and let that play.
I agree.
We'd be happy to bring this back to you after the legislature has run their course.
And I'm betting if I ask a question about statistics as far as distracted driving and crashes, you're going to tell me the same thing.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
She'll get to that in 2D, I'm sure.
All right, we are at 2D, discuss the police department budget.
Mayor and council, at this point, we are in the process of preparing the budget for fiscal year 18. You are due to receive that budget prior to July 1st of this year. The chief and I have been working on various scenarios on this budget since, I guess, about the first of the calendar year. And so we've gone through several different iterations of it. In addition, at the last Finance Committee meeting, which was just this past week, the Finance Committee went over fiscal years 15, 16, and 17's budget, and the chief gave a very thorough discussion to the Finance Committee regarding those expenditures and what the police department has done.
So, on the bear in the room question that has come up, 4 times now around the CAD RMS system and the ability to pull out data from
And the current
quickly,
contract.
rather than manually.
Right. We saw a demonstration from Spillman not too long ago. City manager was present, and Assistant City Manager Lori Gillum, and we were all impressed. I was impressed.
It will it will get you the information that you've been asking for. What we're really working on and concerned with is how it is going to be able to extract data from the old system into the new one. And so you're going to get, once we get it operational, you're going to get great baseline initial data. But for us to be able to drag in the old data and have it make some sense, that's something that I think we're still scratching our head about that a bit, aren't we? Or is that?
Yes, sir, because of the condition of our current technology.
We have gross statistics, though, correct? As far
Yes, sir,
as-
I can get some numbers.
Okay.
Then I'll
And then
stand
we
on
can
one
roll
leg
them
and
up to
hope.
Yeah, but we can roll them up to that
Yes.
for comparative purposes, for
Yes.
benchmarking for budgeting.
We actually gather monthly data and have been since I got here and before, and so we can drag out the monthly data that we've been preparing every month and stockpiling and see what we can do to make some sense of it.
Well, if that's the data we have, that's the data we need to be able to use to make some decisions. So
Yes, sir.
while it may get better as we move forward, that's what we have now.
Okay.
So all the stars aligned, when would we start to be able to see the new data going forward? What's the implementation timeline? Are we looking at January?
Yes, sir.
That's assuming you start when?
They're coming to train with us. It's going to take our officers 6 months to be able to learn this system.
January is the start of implementation.
Yes.
It's the start of gathering data.
Yes.
So that's when
June.
we would first start inputting.
Yeah, nothing meaningful till April.
So you're right.
Yeah, Doug was at that meeting. He could probably explain it a little bit more than I can. It all went over my head on how they're doing it, but it seems pretty complicated and very manual.
Multiple passes of importing.
Was it flat files or something that we're dealing with?
Data from different time frames are stored in different fields.
No uniform RDMS.
No.
Told you could explain it better.
Yeah, so it's going to be multiple databases. Think of it as paperback book, hardback book, microfiche, and old black and white pictures.
I was thinking Word and Excel, but
Nah,
I guess that's
So is there a need to have temporary staff to be able to help port this?
We will have David Bunch's team, in addition to the Spillman team here, training with us. And he can speak more to it. I don't know if David.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be nerdy stuff.
Bigger issue.
We'll ask
Probably.
later.
Well, I mean,
again, it all goes over my head.
No, there needs to be some sort of budget for services in this.
yeah, that's what I was getting at. So any of the transition costs and so forth is just going to be painful and billed at $310 an hour. So
I think it's 250, but
no, 250. Sorry, municipal.
saving us money already.
Yeah. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
So
Are any other questions for the chief?
I had one for Councilmember Marsh. Going through the budget items, were you able to get a feel for where they are, what their requests are, and how it's going to impact the overall city budgets?
So far, I believe we reviewed every department now. If I'm not mistaken, Lori. Yeah, we've reviewed every department. We're running a very tight ship, and that goes pretty much for everybody. There's some things we can do here and there to tighten the budgets within the department, but for the most part, we're operating extremely lean.
And they have not seen the budget requests for fiscal year 18 at this point. None of you have. And the first group that will see it actually will be you all. You'll get it by charter prior to July 1st. We will immediately start providing the information to the Finance and Budget Committee as well and start going over that information too. I think what you're going to get out of the Finance and Budget Committee is recommendations on how we can potentially tighten up the budget based upon their observations.
And that'll be more along the lines, it's where can we tighten up the budget here to add the funds here? We're talking $500 here to, I think the biggest one we saw was, I think just not an accounting error, but just they budgeted for the first year and it kind of carried over. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money. And it really is a very lean use of funds. And we have some accounting folks that can describe it a little bit better than I can, but we haven't found too much to work with, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Chief, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mayor, if we're going to do anything potentially to H in executive session, otherwise you may want to take a little break to describe for the group. how to sum
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I think I will defer the executive session items to the end of our regular meeting at this point due to the lack of time. I would like to have the guests present who are here to speak on the golf course. If you've filled out a little form to speak, you need to present that to our city secretary, please.
You can also use that form to log comments into the
Right.
official record, even if
You
you're
don't,
not
you
speaking.
don't have to speak. You can either check the little box in favor or oppose, whatever it may be. So, council, if I could close the work session, please.
Motion to close the work session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the work session. Mr. Heath.
Yes.
Mr. Marsh.
Yes.
Mr. Weiss.
Yes.
Mr. Pena.
Yes.
And chair votes yes. We're adjourned for 10 minutes.